everyone, and welcome back to episode 23 of the BucsUK TV podcast. It's another victory for the Bucs, so we just keep going. We'll keep broadcasting as long as they keep winning, unfortunately. So, you're kind of stuck with us. I'm joined today by an able triumvirate of Gary, Tim, and Graeme.
Evening all.
Hi.
Oh.
Evening, or if you're watching in the morning, it's morning or lunchtime.
Morning all.
We'll just edit that to whichever time you're watching. That'll be fine. So this week's been a fantastic week for the Bucs, but it's also been a fantastic week for the BucsUK. We did a video on YouTube of the members wishing the Bucs well in the playoffs. It's been fantastic. It's had over 600 views, loads of likes, and the Bucs themselves were really, really stoked by it. We had a message by Carmen Vitali of Bucs.com, the news team, wishing the BucsUK well, and you can see that on our homepage at BucsUK.org. And save the best till last on Twitter. We went past 4,000 followers on Twitter now, following the BucsUK account, which I think puts us something like 8th or 9th of all the NFL clubs and the UK fan clubs there. So that's excellent news. But without any further ado, we will turn our minds to the last game. And we'll work out how on earth we got away with it. So, Gary, if I'll start with you, you were confident for the outset, weren't you?
I was, but I wasn't quite as confident when I realised just how good Washington actually are. I think they're a lot better than the record, a lot better than advertised, especially on defence. So, yeah, I was confident of victory. I mean, we got TB12, so you've got to be confident. But Washington are not a bad side.
Yeah, I think, Graeme, you were the most confident of all probably going into the game, weren't you? What was your overall takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty confident because I hadn't bothered looking up Washington. I just looked at the record. But obviously, like Gary said, in the week before you start looking at them, and yeah, they're pretty decent side, but quite young on the defensive line. So, your man Young running off the field shouting, bring on Tom Brady. Love it. Perfect.
Yeah, it sounds like they've got a bright future. And Tim, you were obviously pleased with the result.
Absolutely delighted. We waited 13 years to get back in the playoffs, let alone win a game, and it was much closer than the experts, meaning our panel, actually thought it was going to be. I was quite impressed with, as the boys have said, the Washington defense, and I was disappointed. And also, we made Heineke look, and minor Tom Brady, he looked superb. And fair play to the boy, played with a lot of heart. But
yeah. We'll gloss over your generous use of the phrase experts, and we'll go into the game analysis like you started there. Let's start with the Bucs on offense then. That seemed to be the highlight of the game. And maybe, Graeme, if we start with you, what were your sort of key things that sort of really made the difference on the day?
Well, for me, and I guess everyone will say the same, the offensive line was always going to be the key to keep these young guys and put them back in their box, basically. And I think they performed brilliantly. Donovan Smith's taken a lot of lumps this season, but he was fantastic. I think we sacrificed Gronk quite a lot to chip away at the blocking, and that really worked because Tom Brady, although he was sacked 3 times, he seemed to just stand there in the box for ages, just picking his passes. But the other thing on the offensive line, to be fair, it wasn't just pass protection. They opened up a whole lot of lanes for Fournette, and he performed fantastically well. And I think it's that thing about balancing the offense. It's great having Tom Brady, but you really need, if you become one-dimensional, you're in trouble. And I think that'll be obvious this week. I think it's happened to us the last 2 times we've played the Saints. But I think on Saturday night, Sunday morning, their offensive line, absolute key to the game, played outstandingly well. Really pleased.
Come on, Graeme. You know the running order. No spoilers till we get to the.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Tim, sticking with the offense.
Graham's touched on obviously a lot of things. I've wrote Brady very efficient. Fournette best game as a back. Mike Evans a legend, and followed it up with offensive line all great, especially Smith and Wirfs. Fair
Good
play
things
to,
about Smith? Surely
yeah,
not.
you know, I've been a big critic of Smith over the past 2 seasons or so. The guy has great games that he takes the play off. And whether aliens had lit a flame under him, he has been absolutely superb. And I watched the game back a couple of times. There wasn't as much support. You know, we mentioned Gronk chipping once in a while, but he did take on Chase Young quite a lot by himself and held his ground very, very well. And Wirfs is just a superstar, an absolute superstar.
Brilliant.
The big miss will be Kappa, because we've turned into one of the best lines in the league, I believe. Top 5 line in the league, and very young. And Kappa will be a big miss.
And when I looked on Buccaneers.com earlier at the team's depth chart, there is no sub listed for Kappa.
No,
Really?
well, they've named it to be Aaron Stinney now, who's had 30, 40 snaps in the season. But Ted Larson didn't look great on times. That's why Chiano picked him up. You know, look where it came from to start with.
So Tim started the flip side of the coin, some of the not so good things, and Gary, maybe what else were your where were the areas for improvement?
Well, the one big worry, obviously, the Kappa injury is a big problem. But from the Washington game, Chris Godwin clearly didn't look himself. He had 4 drops, 5 drops.
Yeah, about that. Very unlike him.
Very unlike him. And the other big problem, and I'm contradicting myself as usual by saying how good the Washington defense were. We kicked 4 field goals.
Yeah.
So very short field goals as well. So, you know, turn 2 of those field goals into touchdowns. It's a very easy victory. So,
and actually, there was some interesting coaching. Sorry, Gareth. So there's some interesting coaching decisions as well around the kicking. You know, when we had that PAT blocked, that next time to go for 2 and not make 2, that also felt like it made it a little bit squeakier than it needed to be.
Well, it did, because we'd have been up by 9 points at the end, and they'd have had to go for, you know, a touchdown, and the 2-point doesn't win it for them. So yeah, it did seem a little bit early to be going for 2.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He was already chasing that point back way too early in the game.
But of course, if they'd have got the 2 points, we'd all be happy as Larry, and you know, not talking about it.
Actually, we've started talking about special teams, so we might as well carry on with them. I you know, hand in the air. I sometimes aren't so jovial towards the special teams, but I hadn't realised till I read it this week. Suckup has now set the all-time season points record for the Bucs. So, you know, that's testament to what he did. And, you know, he was ice cold on the day, I thought. I've looked back at the PAT. I'm not sure if it was a low trajectory from him or just, you know, a good rush. But I don't really blame him for that.
No, don't blame it. It was a missed block by Joel Haig, actually. And the guy was through before he even had a chance really to get it off his boot.
But in terms of the rest of the special teams game, maybe, Graeme, if we come back to you.
Yeah.
How do you think it went?
Yeah, I thought they were pretty good. I think Finian put a couple of punts inside the 20, which is always good. Obviously, a negative with the missed extra point. And to be honest, one of the field goals was very close to being blocked. The guy came flying across and barely missed it. But whether that was a missed assignment, I don't know. But, you know, you get away with it. You get away with it. So I think, I agree. Field goals, I can watch them now. I'm quite enjoying watching field goals now. I'm pretty sure by then within the 40-yard line, we're probably going to score. Whereas, and then again, without wanting to jump the gun, I think our opponents this weekend have gone the opposite way, fortunately. So they're getting a bit shaky in that one. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased overall. If we're not talking too much about special teams, it's a good thing. Just keep things simple.
So maybe there's not many words to say, but I'm always rib gently about the grades that I give the special teams. That's clearly a moniker I've earned. But I'm going to ask you guys to grade the special teams. So Gary, if you were Mr. Botley, sir, what mark would special teams get?
Well, the problem is you've got 2 areas of special teams. You've got the kicker, who's got to be definitely A, even possibly A+. And then you've got the return game, you know, both aspects of the return game. We don't have a return game. It's just virtually non-existent. We covered okay in the Washington game, but obviously we let that punt return in the Detroit game, wasn't it? So, I mean, probably overall B minus, I would say. I'm sort of bordering on a word I've used before, mediocre.
Yeah.
But you stuck up out.
But you know, as well as media, but safe.
Yes.
I think that's the important bit, is safe.
I was looking, incidentally, at return yards today, doing a little bit of research, believe it or not. We had, through the regular season, 176 yards on punt returns. And I thought, well, that's dreadful. It's 5.9. Green Bay, 53 yards on the season. So actually, we're pretty good.
Yeah,
that's because you've got this lump of ice coming out of the heavens at you, Lambo. Who wants to catch that?
Okay, not in September, you haven't.
True. Tim, grades for the special teams.
I think Gary's a bit harsh on them, actually. Most teams don't return that many punts nowadays. If you watch most of the games, there's fair catches all over the place. All kickoffs go into the end zone. We got probably the best in the game at kickoffs at the moment, because he returns, allows hardly any to be returned. So the punting team is decent. Our kicker, I'm thinking back to the days of Matt Bryant, and we talked earlier about the first playoff game in 13 years. We're now talking our best kicker in the last 13 years as well. So they both come together. It's an important part of the game that we've struggled with for many, many years, and now we've got it right on both aspects. We seem to have had a good punter or a decent kicker. We've never had both together, and I think our special teams kickers are really good.
And if you had to put one of the 6 letters of the alphabet on it?
A minus.
Oh, very good. Top of the class there. Mr. Reed, sir.
Joel Haig has stopped that from being an A.
Head of humanities over there.
I'm kind of falling in between. I'm a B plus, I think, just below an A. I think solid and unspectacular does it for me in special teams. If you have a good kicker, if you don't have a good kicker, then special teams as a whole just falls apart. We've got a pretty good kicker now, a pretty decent kicking game, good punter, good kickoffs. As Gary says, there's nothing spectacular in the return game, but I think if you just get a safe pair of hands in the return game, I think that does it for me. And I'll say that they're a B plus, just below an A.
Very good. Well, I'm going to go an even B, because I think I agree with Gary in terms of sort of that mediocrity or that safety or the simplicity of just not making mistakes. Because at this stage of the season, that can be the difference between winning and losing. So I want them to play safe. I don't want someone, when that ball's rolling on the ground, get away from it. No dancing around. If you're not sure about the fair catch, step away from the ball. Just, that's not winning. We're not, we haven't got Devin Hester. We're not going to take it to the house, probably. We haven't really shown much threats of charging any punts down. So let's not risk the flags or running into the kicker. I think let's win it where our strengths are, which is the offense. And then, where we're going to have to win it, perhaps where our strength maybe doesn't lie, then takes us on to the defense. Mixed bag again, isn't it, Tim?
We made just enough plays on defense, would be the way I would put it. Certainly, I will give kudos to Taylor Heineke. He played a game nobody expected to see, but no consistent pressure. We got pressure. He'd escaped the pocket, but it was once in a while. We weren't it all the time. You hardly heard Barrett's thing mention JPP towards the end. But throughout that game, you were always worried. It's our usual thing this season of they've got third and 10, third and 11. They make it every time. And that is my big concern. We cannot get off the field consistently on defense.
We often get ourselves into some good third down positions, don't we? But then there's someone in acres of space.
Yeah. We drop back, we play this soft zone man coverage, and as you said, there are 10 yards in between. And unfortunately, when we're in that case, we miss somebody like Devin White, who's got that basic outright speed to try and cut down those gaps. He might not be the best in coverage, but he's the fastest make-up speed currently in the league.
And actually, he does add another dimension in the pass rush, which I think we all agree is going to be very important next week in the next game.
Indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Graeme, defense.
Yeah, I mean, I sat and wrote down positives and negatives. The positive, the big one, I think, is that they did enough. Just when it mattered, they managed to get the plays. They just about did enough. I mean, against the run, it's really lights out. If you look at, I think, 46 yards rushing, if you take out the quarterback scrambles, really, none of them were designed run plays. They were just basically scrambles. So, lights out. They're going to have to be absolutely in top gear this week to do the same, stop the run, because we all know who we're up against this week. But yeah, pressure, not enough pressure, consistent pressure on the quarterback, and that's been something we've been complaining about quite a bit. And
we never get to listen in, do we? But that pressure, that coverage, if you had to say, is that coaching and play calling, or is that players and talent? Where on the barometer do you think you stick the needle?
No, that's coaching to me. That's the coach. That's the play calling there. That's them being told how to play the game. Surely. I mean, I could be talking nonsense, but to me, that's how that's the game plan, the defensive game plan. And to me, that the worst team to play that way against in the whole league probably is the team we're playing this week. If we do that against them, we're in real trouble, and that's been proved in the last two games. So. Yeah, we need to devise a way of getting to him, and as Tim said, getting Devin White back will be fantastic, because we saw what he could do was at the Detroit game or the one before when he had 3 sacks in the second half, And if they devise enough schemes like that, where we get pressure coming from different angles and confuse them, get on top of Brees, force them to throw the ball up in the air, then we've got a chance. But not enough of that at the weekend there. Again, too many big pass plays. They did enough. They were okay. Some pretty good plays at times, but yeah, lacking a little bit.
And Gary, sort of a similar question asked in a different way. Obviously, give us your take on the defense, but instead of it being maybe players or coaching, if you had to think in terms of the D line versus the secondary, it's not fair to put it all on the secondary, because if someone's got the time to put it 20 yards downfield, that's because someone hasn't got to the quarterback, isn't it?
That's exactly right. And the one big thing that was missing in the game on Sunday was pass rush. We didn't really get to him, did we? I know he was very elusive, and it has to be said, that little young man made himself an awful lot of money on Saturday night, didn't he? I actually think this emphasis on stopping the run and being the number one defense against the run for the last 2 years, it's almost working against us, because teams know they can't run, but they know they can throw on us. And the one big problem that we've had, and we've all highlighted it, is the opposition receivers just running free. They catch the ball in space. There's no pressure on them. There's no, we don't basically contest it at the point of the catch. We're quite good at tackling when they catch, so that it's catch, fall, and jump on them, or they're running free. We don't contest the catch. The only one, if you think about that game against Washington, the only pass that I can think of that we contested, other than the interception that Minter deflected, was that 4th and a mile and a half that ended the game. We had 2 defenders in front of the receiver to back the ball down. Probably the only time you saw that in the entire game.
I'm trying to find the WhatsApp message that Pete Payne sent me. This is Pete 16-0 Payne. I can't remember. I can't find the message, but I'll paraphrase the words I'm allowed to mention. It was something like, "What the something arm tackles something get them something."
Yeah, it's one of the things I wrote down. Our tackling technique. I've said this the few times I've been on the podcast this year. Like most, we don't know how to tackle properly. Most of these players just go in, try and hit the body and hope they fall over. I don't know how they don't teach them to tackle properly.
Well, you
they
saw
can't
it.
run without their legs.
You saw it on there were a couple of the runs that the quarterback had. There was one particular run where he had 3 or 4 of our D linemen around him, and he ducked and weaved and bobbed, and then ran straight forward, over slightly to his right. And I think it was Minter, I might be wrong, who just waved an arm at him as he ran past him. You know, it was pathetic, quite frankly.
And that isn't coaching, because that's kind of fundamentals. These guys have been playing football since, you know, sometimes since they were 6 or 7. You know, it's about the angles that you take and how you break down towards the ball. It's a bit like if you're the gunner on a punt coverage. If you're going full speed, all the punter's got to do is step to one side and you're going to go flying past. If you're not going to be contesting it in coverage and you're going to be 10 yards off, you're going to be flying towards the receiver. Therefore, you've got to break down when you get there. And you have this thing where the sort of receiver's running a hook or something, and we come flying behind them, and their direction or a sidestep's taking them around and breaking that first tackle. So, you know, that's something I think that needs to be worked on. But I'm saving my magic wands for other aspects, which we'll come on to. We do have the views of our members. Okay, first up, our pilot from the south, John Zinkus. Yeah, that's the win. Now for the next 24 hours, I'm officially a Bears fan. I think we were all Bears fans. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. You know, the Bears, I think, again, we'll come on to talk about this with the preview, but I think the Bears showed that the Saints are beatable because they made so many mistakes and kept it close for so long. Dave Chambers, in true Bucs style, never easy, but wow, this feels good. Go Bucs. And it was really nice to see Dave here back on the forum. So welcome back to you. Yeah, he was absolutely right. There were the celebrations, the support we had on the forum during the game. Our record posts for a game on the forum was about just under 800 posts on a thread, which is, you know, bonkers enough to try and keep yourself going during one of our sort of end of year discos. During this game, bearing in mind it was happening in the middle of the night, we had over 1,300 posts on the game thread. It was both hilarious, fun, you know, enthralling and hectic. It certainly kept me awake, at least. And Mariana, who was good enough to join us on the Zoom and on the forum before the game on the Zoom. We had a great club meeting. Brian Ford came along and said hello to us, the Bucs Chief Operating Officer. It was so special. He made everyone feel really welcome and took a few questions. Mariana says, well, that was easy. I presume she's in sarcastic mode. Don't even know why I was worried. There you go, sarcasm font, exactly. And I think our last comment from Dom, I think he said what we were all trying to say. He just often finds the better words to say it with. I don't even think I need to read that out. But actually, I have to read it out because if you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify, it's been lost on you. It's a page of the word yes. I think he was happy to understand, you know, to put it mildly. So yeah, and one last member comment we had through, thanks to Steve Gargett, who sent in a video, and this is what he had to say.
Take the win on Saturday, but overall a bit disappointed with the performance. Too many drop catches and the secondary going missing in action. I know where you're going to have to wave your magic wands this week, otherwise Drew Brees will just rip us apart.
No, thank you, Steve. That's appreciated. And actually, I think we share a lot of your views. We've mentioned the receivers. You mentioned Drew Brees, and that's something we're going to come on and talk about, I'm sure, as we now look ahead to that conference game against the Saints. So, as a bridge between the football team and the Saints, this is our magic one time. You know, you've got the week now. You've got a week and a day. You've got an extra day. One of the advantages of playing on the Saturday, you've got a little bit of extra time. If you're Bruce, let's start with you, Tim. If you're Bruce, where are you going to work your magic?
Where I'd wave my magic wand, if I was Bruce Arians, I would want to turn Aaron Stinney into Alex Capper, or a version of Alex Capper. Even 60-70% would be a big improvement on Ted Larson. So that's the part of the game I'm looking at.
I think that's good. And how realistic do you think that is? Because there are some big shoes to fill.
Massive shoes to fill. You've got to give him a shot. He can't be no worse than Ted Larson was last week.
That's a fair point.
Nothing else to say on him.
Graeme.
Well, I'm going to be either boring or consistent. Ever since I started waving my magic penalty wand, we've started getting a lot better at at not conceding penalties. And I think 3, maybe 4, which we can live with the other night. It's just so important. We can't afford to let that drop. I think we've been pretty good in the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, and I need that to continue.
I think we'd all agree with that very strongly. Gary?
Mine was going to be Alex Kappa, but as Tim has pinched that, I'm going to go back to one I used on the podcast a few weeks ago, and it's the Plan B filing cabinet that clearly has locked itself again in Todd Bowles' office. So he needs to find that key. If you remember in that debacle that was the week 9 game, his rationale, his game plan was rush 4, play soft zone, and yeah, okay, that worked, didn't it? 38-3 was the score.
Well, I mean, I'll do my magic wand in a moment, but I think Tom Brady throwing, was it 3 interceptions? Probably shoulders some blame as well.
I'm sure it did, but you know, we gave up 38 points. Whatever you do, you know, there was receivers running free. It would, and again, I'm contradicting myself. Very slightly in defence was the fact that Ali Marpet missed that game. That was one of his games out with concussion. So that didn't help. But the scheme he came up with in that game clearly didn't work. So we need Plan B. And as I said last time, if Plan B doesn't work, we need a Plan C. And, you know, we keep hearing he's very good at making adjustments at half-time. What on earth is he waiting till half-time for? If it's not working, change it.
Fair point. And I think we'll come back to scheme, maybe as our first topic of discussion. We normally go and talk about players to watch, but I think we know this team so well. You know, there are no surprises now. So my magic wand, I was originally going to try and either get Kieron Vaughan a football brain, a new set of hands, or you know, maybe give him a sort of prawn vindaloo that gone off before the game. So, you know, maybe we had to go a different way. But actually, I'm going to take that prawn vindaloo. I'm going to half heat it, and I'm going to give it to Taysom Hill. And I want him nowhere near the ball, nowhere near the field, unable to come out of the locker room. And I think, you know, Sean Payton, we know him, he knows us. He delights with his sort of maniacal face, evilly gleeing as he schemes some 50-yard pass from off the running back's shoelaces. So I just want Taysom Hill locked up and kept away from the field. So as I mentioned, we'll talk about scheming, and maybe Tim, if we start with you, this has been the week of cliches. Third time's a charm, monkey off my back, any given Sunday. This is why we play the game. All of those things, but how are we going to win this game?
You win the game in the trenches. You win both sides of the line. In any game, in any sport, it's the unseen heroes need to step up. If you don't hear Smith, Marpet, Jensen, Stinney, and Worse, we've done a good job. And you want to hear the defensive line being shouted out. You want to hear Barrett's name for the first time in a couple of games. Yeah, that's where the game is going to be won and lost. The other thing I would do, I would spy Devin White just on Alvin Kamara. I've said this before, like we used to do with Derek Brooks and Michael Vick. Same policy again.
I mean, Kamara clearly has exploded in the last few weeks. Anyone that had him pretty much won their fantasy football final. He's just so elusive. And it's not just him, though, is it? They've got Latavius Money. They've got Latavius Murray. And actually, Ty Montgomery's even managed to get on the field a few times. And, and that's before you've got the fullbacks as well and the other things they do. It's just a 1-2 punch because, you try and ram up against the run and then, hello, Drew Brees will throw over your head.
Yeah, you just get pressure on Brees. That's the key bit. You just get pressure.
We stop the run, as we've talked about. The problem with Kamara is when he breaks, right or left. So Brees is throwing a horizontal pass almost, and he's then in space. get him in space, get him running. He's very difficult to bring down.
But you put our fastest man and probably our best tackler on him and just fight him all game.
Absolutely.
He's to keep it. Michael Thomas and that are not going to beat you deep. They'll beat you short, but they're not really going to beat you deep.
Yeah, agreed completely.
And there was a lot said actually about Drew Brees' arm strength, and I think maybe towards the beginning of the season I was possibly a bit more flippant than I should have been, having seen him in the last half of the season. But I think he was just saving his arm for when he needed it. Because, you know, Michael Thomas isn't going to beat us deep, but Brees is pushing the ball further down the field now, I think, than they were at the beginning of the year. Graeme, what do you think? What if, you know, the game, we talk about the schemes, how are we going to win this game?
For me, the big key is not to do what we've done in the last 2 games against them and gone behind. We've gone way behind in these games and had to chase it. We've thrown 6 interceptions, sacked 5 or 6 times in these 2 games, and it's just because all we could do was pass, too one-dimensional. So for me, we keep it close. We stop Kamara, of course. We try to stop him in the run, stop him in the passing game. But for me, keep it close. Don't make the mistakes early on. Try and get some scores on the board early on. That's the most important part of the game for me. If we can stay in it, we've got a great chance. Because so I watched some of that video that the Bucs released today with Tom Brady on the field the other night, and I mean, calmness personified. He's throwing a 30-yard pass, and he's just kind of no problem.
This was the mic'd up, wasn't it?
Yeah, anyway,
actually, they had Levante David mic'd up as well, and both of them I thought actually, you know, oozed leadership, oozed calmness.
Just taking care of business, get the job done. There's none of this prancing around and doing dances and, you know, waving at the camera. It's just get the job done. So he's our man in the third, fourth quarter. He could win it for us probably single-handed, but we have to still be in the game at that point. So for me, keep it tight in the first half. If we're within kind of 7 points, 7 points within the first half, I think we'll get every opportunity. But if we're 21 points behind at half time, chasing the game, you're going to get sacked, you're going to get picked off, game's over. So keep it tight, first quarter, first half. I think we're in for a real big shout.
Absolutely. Gary, I think, so Graham's saying we need to come out the tracks fast, and I think you said that in the past as well. But I'm looking to you because maybe this is the game to do something tricksy. You know,
well, you know me. I absolutely love that. But how many trick plays have we seen all year? We've seen one flea flicker, and that's about it. For me, I agree with Tim. Believe it or not, it's a very rare record.
It's
going to be one in the trenches. To me, you've got to get pressure on Drew Brees. We've got to throw the kitchen sink, but not just the sink. We've got to throw the cooker, the washing machine, and the refrigerator as well. We've just got to get him on his backside. He's not gonna harm you if he's lying on his back. It's really as simple as that.
So, actually, and the only thing worse than the soft coverage we're playing would be to blitz and not get to the quarterback.
Well, yes, indeed, because you've then got Kamara, standing 4 yards to his right, takes a little dump off pass, and there's no one to stop him. So it's got to get home. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not scheming for him, but as Graeme said earlier, they've got to do something different to what they've done in the first 2 games because they're not going to beat them playing the same way.
What about, we're focused on their offense, our defense, but flip it around. I think we can't take the Bucs offense as read. We know they sometimes come out cold, and we've addressed that already. But the other thing I want to talk about is the Saints defense, because I think at the beginning of the season, they were overlooked. They were kind of cast aside. But it does feel like they've warmed up a little bit as well, doesn't it?
Definitely, yeah. I think over the season, ranked 5th against the pass, 4th against the run, 1st in interceptions, and they're getting a couple of their players back from injury too, so pretty fresh. Hendrickson's back this week, I think, against us. He had 13, 14 sacks in the season. Really good defence, really good. And as you say, warming up and injured players coming back, tough.
Yeah, a good defence, but we also put 30 points up last week on a very good defence as well. Another top-ranked defence. Look at our scoring throughout the season against good defences. The only one probably we really struggled against was Chicago.
Yeah, we're gonna score points. You against any defense will score points. As you said, Tim, 31, 12 of those were 4 field goals. So
Yeah.
with a little bit of change of luck, you're talking 40 points again. So we'll score points. The question is, can we stop them scoring points?
Oh yeah, it could be a real track meet out there.
So what's the secret then? I mean, do we just stick with what's working for us in offense? We stick with our blueprint and we impose our will, or do we need to change things a bit? I ask that because I think the biggest bit I actually get scared about with the Saints is their secondary. You know, I look down at both the Jenkins, Williams, and Lattimore, and actually some of the backups as well that have been coming in, like Swearinger and others when it's nickel and dime and things. You know, I just think if we try and go deep on them, unless it's bang on, that could get picked. And I think, you know, again, I referred earlier to the fact that Tom had 3 picks on the game that we'd all rather forget, where we never really came out of the locker room, and how dramatic that was on the whole team. Which, the fact that Tom is such a strong leader, if he fails, that has sort of repercussions, I think, across the squad.
Yeah, can't disagree with that. But I mean, if there's one quarterback you would want in the entire league to be in that position, yeah, I think Brady's your guy. He's and I'm gonna go hands up and own up here. I did not agree with the signing when it happened, getting Tom Brady in. I just didn't see this working out. But my goodness, I hold my hands up and apologise profusely to Tom and to the team. You know,
I was exactly the same. I didn't want it. I thought it would backfire. The guy has been phenomenal, and particularly the last 3, 4, 5 weeks, he's been awesome. Yeah. I mean, 43 years old doing what he's doing. It's beyond ridiculous.
No, I'm not going to stand for that. I said this on the forum. I'm 43 as well, and he's thrown for 40 touchdowns, and I've claimed that I can eat 40 Maltesers. So, you know, if you want it here, I'm telling you, if we get to the Super Bowl, get me a bag of Maltesers, we'll go.
Yeah, I agree with the boys. I was wary of the signing last season, but to see him on Sunday, even when we were kicking field goals, he was still switched on. It was a close game, everything on the line. Who would you rather have, Brady, Jameis Winston? We are much more confident.
In fairness, Tim, you'd rather have Tom Brady over just about anybody.
Oh, absolutely. You know, somebody asked me on a lot of the other forums I'm with, is he really the greatest? And I've been watching the game for 30-odd years. He is the best I've ever seen. Montana, people like that, you would take Brady in front of them all.
And you say, is it a system? Is it the head coach? And I think he just makes it look easy.
Yeah. He's with a new head coach, new system, new city. Where are we? We're in the divisional game. We're in New England.
Yeah. What worried me most,
on the
to be honest,
the last fortnight.
Yeah. What worried me most was that we couldn't keep him on his feet. But the offensive line have grown in stature all season as well, and that's been a huge part of it, which I'm really pleased about, obviously. But all I could imagine was him ending up on his backside 4, 5, 6 times a game, and you know, just no good. But the offensive line have played their part, and really enjoyed watching him. He's been awesome.
Okay, so it's money where your mouth is time. We're going to have to predict a score. We'll start with you, Gary, and then we'll go on to Tim and then Graham. What is when the whistle goes, 0's on the clock, do we get the win?
Well, when we got qualified for the playoffs, I, believe it or not, was secretly hoping that we would get the Saints at some point, because I was always confident that we would beat them again. They cannot play as badly. They can't make the same mistakes. Surely not. So I think we'll win. I think it'll be close, but I can see us winning. So I think we can score points. So I'm thinking something along the lines of 35-31, 35-32, something like that.
Okay. Tim, do you agree?
Well, I've got a head and a heart pick here, but I've got the same score.
Me too.
And the score is very similar to Gary's. And I had 34-31. My heart obviously wants it one way, but my head genuinely thinks we will go down 34-31. I
Okay.
hate to say it.
Graham, you looks like
Don't ever show Brian Ford this or
We're not-
whatever. He won't buy me a beer ever again.
Okay, Graham, are you feeling the same?
I've got 35-31 for Tampa Bay. I see it really. That's what I've got written down here. Honest, Gary.
Yeah.
Can't fault you, mate.
But again, go back to the first half. You know, stay in the game, and you're right. We'll score points. Sure, we'll score points. Stay in the game the first quarter, first half. I think every chance of winning it. And I do like playing against the Saints because they're pretty free and open games normally. We've fallen short this season so far, but I think we can take it out.
Does this come down to who's got the last ball?
It could do, or who doesn't make a mistake in overtime. I think it could be that close.
Yeah.
So again, like you, Tim, I've got a head and a heart. My heart says the Bucs can do this, and of course they can. And percentages, I think if we were to do our advanced stats or next gen or whatever it is, I think the Bucs have got a 40% chance of winning this game. But that means I think the Saints have probably got a 60% chance of winning it. And the score I've written down is 38-35. I think, this is going to be moving the ball. I don't think we're going to stop them. I don't think they're going to stop us. I think it's going to be like that Fitz magic game when we played the Saints in week 1 a few years ago, where you just didn't know what was going on. It's like pinball. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to be on the losing side, but I think if it goes to overtime with that final drive, who's got the ball? And if we've got the ball and there's 2 minutes left, then I have every belief that we're going to do it. It's not about lack of ability. I think it's just two very well matched teams.
Yeah.
And I think for the neutrals watching the game, it's clearly I think the game of the season again. This is the old man bowl, isn't it? There was a great mock-up Photoshop that someone had done of sort of Pensioner Brady and Pensioner Breeze still going in like 2048 or something. So those are our views. We'd love to hear your views. There's already a forum thread for the game for people to say what they think's going to happen. There's been some really good, detailed thoughts that have gone on there. So chip in, comment on the video, give us the thumbs up, like and subscribe. Thanks to Bucs Report. Thanks to Gary, Tim, and Graham.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
And we will see you next week. We hope next week we're talking about 2 games, but even if we're only talking about 1, tune in and we'll see you then. Thank you.